Hi, welcome back to my vlog. Today I'm going to be interviewing Miss Carbone. She's an ELL teacher at Lowry Elementary and she teaches in 3rd grade. Lowry Elementary is the school that I student teach at, so I'm really excited that I'm getting a chance to talk to her. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have Miss Carbone with me here now, and we're just going to go ahead and get started. So could you go ahead and tell us what grade level you teach and what subject you teach?
I teach 3rd grade math and science.
Okay, awesome. And so the first question that I have for you is, you are an ESL teacher, so I want to know what type of ELLs you have in your classroom.
The types of ELLs I have are, do you want language preference, or do you want, levels, or?
Language and level would be good, yes.
Language and levels, okay.
Yeah.
So, what I have 2 beginners, both who speak Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
My Arabic speakers tend to be a little bit lower than my Spanish speakers. I have 2 Spanish speakers, which are about intermediate. One is intermediate and one is advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have one more, and I think he's also Spanish. Yes, he's
Okay.
also Spanish, and he is advanced high.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you said that your Arabic-speaking students, they struggle
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more. So what challenges do you notice that your students face when it comes to language?
What I'll notice is Spanish has a lot of derivatives of English. So
Mm-hmm.
English words and Spanish words kind of, they're very similar in nature and sounds, as well as where the root word comes from, and the meaning kind of corresponds, so it's easier to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Arabic speakers, they have a hard time because their language does not sound anything like English, and the sounds are different, the
Mm-hmm.
vowels are different, consonants are different. The wording, like you could have multiple syllable words that they speak, but it could only mean one word in English.
Mm.
So it's harder for them to connect the different letter sounds as well as the meanings to things, and then keep that meaning. The biggest challenge for them is saying that we have English words that mean one thing, but we can have multiple English words mean that same thing, whereas they don't. And they only have, 1 or 2 words that mean exactly what they're saying, and that's where they struggle, because they see that word in English and they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll pick that one. But then we're not looking for that one. We're looking for, either a more academic word or, like a more advanced word, and they get confused because they're giving you the answer, except we're not looking for that variation. We're looking for, a better synonym, or, one that drives more meaning from it. So that's where they kind of get a little bit of a decoding problem, as well as just the misinterpretation, and that's where they lose their meaning.
Right. So you'd say that there are fewer similarities between Arabic and English for those students than, say, Spanish and English speakers, yes.
Not to say that Spanish speakers, it's not a struggle for them, but it's easier to connect as well as, they're more familiar, and they have some English words in Spanish that they use. So, yeah.
So what do you enjoy about working with ELLs?
I love the cultures behind it, just because a lot of the time they bring in their experiences that I've never, as a person, either been able to venture or travel or even be around, just because I grew up in a suburban, area and not around a lot of different minorities. And if I was around minorities, they tended to be either Spanish or Asian. So it wasn't a great mix of everybody. So it's really insightful, just because they bring their own interpretations and they actually think different ways. It's interesting to see how, native English speakers think, and then when met with either an Arabic speaker or Spanish speaker or Vietnamese speaker, they look at things in different lights and different ways, and they add their own background to it, especially with books or different concepts like in science.
Right.
And it's just, I want to say you get a better grasp of the world, and so do the other students in class, which is a benefit to them, because might not ever travel outside of the United States, or they might not ever travel anywhere where there are minorities, but to have them in our class and to represent those countries as well as those languages, it's a great insight to the world around us beyond our classroom.
Yeah. Would you say that it helps you form deeper relationships with your students as well, because you have to get to know them on a more personal level based on their background?
Oh yes, definitely, and patience too.
Yes.
You can't. A lot of the time, we as teachers, we get a little bit impatient with our English speakers just because we see our ELLs doing so well, and we kind of get it in our head like, how is it easier for them and not for you? And then you kind of gain more patience going about and saying, I know you're not going to get this the first time, and we're going to help either with pictorials or, translations, or I'm going to have small group with you. So it's the more, and it's better for your teacher to look too, so that way that you can just understand, okay, well, I understand that this is going to take many different tries as well as, many different interventions, and it also helps you seek out different interventions beyond yourself and to other teachers who can come in and help. So it makes you a better teacher too.
Yeah. So what approaches or methods do you use in the classroom when it comes to your ELLs, either to help them or meet them where they're at?
Lots of pictures. So pictures are worth literally 1,000 words to them, because a lot of the time you can use any variation of an English word, whether it sounds easy to you, it's not easy to them. So using pictures and then associating those pictures with those words, as well as giving them the experience. So, for example, I have a little boy who has never seen a cat before. And so to bring that up, I brought in a stuffed animal that felt like a cat, as well as, a picture. I put up a picture on the board, and I put the different sounds. So it's not just giving them a picture, it's letting them live it. Yeah. So they might not ever come into experience with it, but as long as you give them those variables of like sounds, like looks, like feels, like they're able to make that connection of, oh, okay, so whenever he will see a cat, he'll be able to associate, it feels like this, it sounds like this, I know it. So he can apply that to other things. Yeah. And that's what I use, as well as their dictionaries. We have dictionaries that are specific to their language. So it helps them a lot for like tax tests. They can use them on, not tax tests, we're in STAR now. STAR tests, they can use them on STAR tests, they can use them on benchmarks, they can use them, not just because, it's an accommodation, but because they, as ELL speakers, are, allowed to have them, through the state, because they're going to miss out on meeting if they don't. As well as we have accommodations per specified by the TELPAS, our state recommendations. Yes. And just because we get recommendations doesn't mean that that's all that we can do for them. And I really strive to do personalized games, anything that they're familiar with. I know that a lot of the time I'll ask them if games they're familiar with from home, or like from my Arabic speakers are from Egypt. So I ask them, what are some games that, in Egypt you play, or what are some sports? And I relate it to them. So it's not
something that they can make a personal connection to.
Yeah, and they're more inclined to make, I want to say, tries and effort. And they're not going to be afraid to speak up and add their own opinion. And that really does help out a lot. Right.
So my last question for you, what advice do you have for other or future ELL teachers like myself?
My advice would be to, I never thought about this when I was doing it, because I just thought, okay, well, I'll take this extra ELL certification, because I kind of want to understand more about English language learners and, how they think, how they are able to speak, where their language comes from. But I really recommend you reading up on as many books as you can, and learning about the different religions that coincide with the different languages, because it's really, or the different festivities, the holidays, because it makes a world of a difference. And not only that, but you tend to pick up on the language that yourself. So it's like, you're not going to be able to speak every word in that language, but you're able to connect, like, oh yeah, for example, one of my Spanish speakers, and we're talking about Halloween, and it's like De los Muertos, and I was like, the Day of the Dead, and they're like, you know that? And they get so surprised and they feel more connected with you because they're like, oh, she knows me. Like, you know, she understands. And, I never thought to do that because I was just like, oh, well, I'll help them in any way that they need. But not only that, but to help me as a person connect with, you know, humans that beyond my four walls of my classroom, I probably would never interact with because I never have free time beyond that. So it's really a benefit to you as well as anybody you meet. I also think that if you have opportunities beyond school to either brush up on your ELL understandings or, you know, not only that, but the TEKs that go with it, the ELLs that go with it, just understanding what those mean. Because when I looked at them, I was just like, I have no idea what these are. And I didn't know how it related to my teaching. I just knew that they had certain accommodations and everything like that. And I was taught, you know, the ELLs, but at the same time, I was just like, okay, well, how do I apply this? Because in the curriculum, it's, you know, your standard curriculum's not built for that. It's not built for, you know, like, oh, and your ELLs, they're going to be able to do this. No, it's more like this. Here are the struggling areas. Well, I don't want to know the struggling areas, just those. I want to know what they can do and what I can give them and what I'm able to go beyond that. So I would just probably look into various things like you would for any subject or, you know, whether you teach math, science, reading, writing, anything like that. Just figure out some ways that you can connect better with your students as well as understand all that you're required as a teacher, because a lot of the time we just go in for a certification and we kind of just miss out on the meaning of how this applies to our teaching as well as to the other students that you're going to teach. And I did that and it helped. And you can read book after book, but it's only when you experience it you understand your abilities and your understanding and your limitations. So, but yeah, I would recommend all those things.
Okay. Well, you're definitely a source that I'll come to whenever I need advice on ELLs because it seems like you've got it down pretty well. So,
thank you. I'm learning every day.
Well, okay. So that's going to be it for our interview. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Awesome.
All right.